people do you know who've had knee replacement surgery and were shocked when it didn't fix the pain or restore their mobility? The truth is, your knee may be screaming, but your hip might be whispering the root cause. In this episode, I'm breaking down what no one tells you in a standard rehab, why working your hips might be just the smartest thing you can do for your knees before or after surgery. If you or someone you love is dealing with chronic knee pain, don't skip this one. Welcome to the Midlife Reset Podcast, episode 21. I'm your host, Cheryl Gordon. I educate midlife women on losing weight, feeling stronger, and sleeping better using the tools of yoga and mindfulness. When Mary Lou came to me, she had been told her knee was bone on bone. The only real option in her medical team of how they were discussing it with her was a joint replacement. As you probably know, this is a very invasive surgery, a tremendous amount of pain during recovery. And if you've had knee replacement or a loved one has been through it, you know what Mary Lou is facing. Mary Lou wanted to do what she could to cope with her mobility restrictions because there was still quite a wait before surgery. Now, her friend had recommended my approach, yoga therapy. It's crazy that the doctors made her feel guilty for holding a few extra pounds. It's so much more pressure on the knee joint. But there is no guidance on how to move more comfortably now, the way things were. After working with hundreds of clients like Mary Lou, I have developed an evidence-based protocol that addresses most of the needs for sore knees and hips. We start with gentle relaxation-based practices that help calm the pain response. Now, for Mary Lou, her knee had been getting progressively worse for over a decade. This reduced the amount she wanted to move, which made moving more and more painful. It's a vicious circle, right? Now, research explains how sensations from the body are transmitted to the brain via chemical messengers called neurons, nerve cells. There is no pain until the brain gets the signal and decides that there's something wrong. Now, the brain is super efficient at keeping you safe. If it perceives danger, it's going to give you a jolt to wake you up. Pay attention, something's going horribly wrong. So if the knee joint is out of alignment, maybe the bone is rubbing on bone. Maybe there's an erosion of cartilage. The brain just knows to stop doing whatever you're doing that created that danger signal. It's at the level of the brain that us humans have the potential to create a mindset that isn't just that reactionary. We can literally train ourselves not to be so nervous. One of my teachers was involved in the classic research where people reported their pain levels when they got a paper cut at work. The researchers then got them to compare to if they got a paper cut, say at home on a Sunday when they're reading the comics. And what they found consistently was when people were in a more relaxed frame of mind, the way you might be at home on a Sunday, compared to how you might feel in your mind when you're at work and stressed on a weekday, the pain experience was different. So the brain receives the sensation under a different pretense and it reacts differently. Now we can hack into this if we're aware of it, if we know how. For Mary Lou, she would step down, and Mary Lou is not her real name, of course, but she would step down onto a stair and feel a jolt in her knee. Her brain panicked every time that it felt that jolt and thought, oh my God, the knee's going to give out. I'm going to fall down the stairs. I'm not going to be able to manage simple household tasks on my own. I'm going to have to go to a home. I'm going to be in a wheelchair. Her daughter would be really angry with her. You could see how her mind automatically jumped to kind of worst case scenario. So our first job, Mary Lou and I, was to calm the stress. Then we went to work on how to get some mobility into the knee without aggravating the joint. In the protocol I previously mentioned, there are several poses that do not weight bear heavily on the joint, but do help the muscles to engage and strengthen. I'm going to show you a couple of those in just a few minutes. I love isometric work for the muscles. This means you make the muscle fire, but it doesn't change shape. The reason why this is great is because it doesn't pull on the connective tissue at either end of the belly of the muscle. Often it's the connective tissue or the soft tissue where there's a lot of inflammation, it's right near the joint, there's a lot of pain. So if we're not constantly pulling or aggravating that tissue, pain is reduced. The muscles get stronger without that irritation. And the real secret sauce to my protocol and what made Mary Lou's recovery from replacement surgery so different was our whole body focus. Your knee didn't get to this stage all on its own. It's part of what they call a kinetic chain. It's just one member of the team. Everyone on the team has to be reminded to do their part. So here's why exercising the hip joint helps your knee pain. The hip controls the leg. Kind of makes sense, right? The hip joint is the major weight-bearing joint just above the knee. If it is weak, tight, or not moving well, the knee will end up compensating, leading to pain. Of the 11 muscles that help your knee do something, move it, 7 are attached to the hip as well. So you just can't talk knees without looking at hip function. Now, I'm going to try to share my screen here. This is technology. Let's see what we can do. I want to show you a picture of the gluteus muscles because I want to really talk about that right now. So here we are. Here's where we are at the gluteus muscles. And this is what we really want to talk about when we talk about the hip muscles affecting the knee pain. So you want to look at the gluteus muscles, the hip rotators, and the hip abductors. So let me point those out to you if I can. Here we have the gluteus maximus here. This is the up and down kind of fibers. This is one of the largest muscles in the body. Then we have the gluteus medius. You can see that right here. We're going to talk more about the gluteus medius in our practicum. Right here is where we're going to talk. Right where the gluteus medius, it's a muscle group underneath the maximus, so it's closer into the middle of your body. And this is an area that we often see some trouble spots right here. And then on this side of the picture, you can see the rotator muscles. These are the muscles that turn your leg bone outward, and your foot turns out, your kneecap turns out. Now, what happens, I'm going to stop my share now. What happens when these muscles are out of whack? It pulls your leg bone out of orientation. And there we go, stopping sharing. You didn't need to see all that, I'm sure. So it pulls your leg bone out of alignment, turns the kneecap in an unhelpful direction, and can actually collapse the knee inward. Or knee could be twisted. And so it's misaligned during all your walking and standing. Stiff hips force the body to twist, overuse the knees during everyday movements like squatting, walking, or climbing stairs. Now, restoring your hip range of motion helps distribute movement more evenly. Remember I mentioned kinetic. Well, the body works as a chain. Force is distributed up through the bones. And if one joint isn't working well, like a weak or stiff hip, the joints above and below, which think low back and the knee, they try to make up for it. And that's often how knee pain develops, even though the knee didn't start out to be the problem. Now, in Mary Lou's case, she had knee pain when walking, and we determined her glutes were weak. So her thigh was internally rotating and the knee was caving in with each step. Strengthening the glutes and improving hip control reduced this misalignment and eased some pressure on the knee. This is a very common pattern, by the way. So you can tell that the glute med might be the culprit, or at least in part, if you start to press around this area. So let me show you what I mean. Try to show you what I mean. Adjust my camera. So do you remember the picture we looked at? So here's your gluteus maximus. You can feel the curvature of your buttock. Underneath the glute max is the glute med. And the glute med kind of attaches all around the back of your hip bone. So if you take your fingers and start to feel around at the top of your buttock, kind of like this. So I'm on flesh. I'm not really on actual bone. And I can feel it even in my hips. This is my sore hip. I can feel right here. It's quite tender. So if you start to kind of press around there, maybe you will feel that your glute med, and this is where the gluteus medius muscle touches the bone. That would be either the insertion or the origin for the muscle. In this case, it is the insertion and or the origin, sorry. And so it's tender here, and that shows me that that connective tissue, the tendons, that sort of thing, is a little inflamed. So here's what I had Mary Lou do. We used a tennis ball. Any little soft ball will do, and I'm going to use the wall space here. And I'll do it this way, even though it was my right hip I was touching, so I can show you better. But I'm going to push the ball into the fleshy part of my buttocks. So I'm not at the bone, I'm in the fleshy part of my butt. I'm going to put the ball against the wall and gently push back into the ball. And then I'm going to do a little dance move. I'm just going to kind of roll the ball around. Now you're in complete control of how much you're pushing your buttock into the wall. So if you're listening to this rather than watching, I'll try to describe what I'm doing here. I've got my body aligned, the back of my body aligned to the wall. I've got the tennis ball in the fleshy part of my buttocks, and I'm just kind of moving the ball around in a bit of a circle or back and forth motion. And I'm pushing the buttocks towards the wall against the force of the ball, just to notice where I have the tender areas and where I might be able to release some of the muscular tension, the knots, the contraction. When I find a really tender area, I might just stop here for a second and just kind of hold a little pressure against the tennis ball to the wall, just to try to release that pressure. So that's a technique that I have found personally to be really, really helpful. And it certainly worked well for Mary Lou. Now, if you repeat this maybe once a day for a week or so, you'll probably start to notice a little bit more ease in your hips. Now, while we're talking brass tacks, getting right down to actual work, I want to show you a favorite way to work with knees so you don't put too much pressure on them. So I'm going to use my chair for this. And I also have a strap. You can use an old tie, a resistance band. And you sit at the edge of a chair. Make sure you've got a nice sturdy chair. And you're going to take the strap around the ball of the foot. Hold either end of the strap in either hand, kind of like you were holding the reins of a horse. As you inhale, push your legs straight out. And as you exhale, bend your knee. And you go back and forth a few times with your breath. And that's one of my favorite ways to work with the knee. There's no real pressure on the knee, but you're strengthening the muscles that help the knee to move.